So, hello and welcome to the Kindle MMA Top 10 Takeaways from UFC Fight Night Vegas. Marvin Vettori versus Roman Dolidze. I'm going to go through the entire card and give you my top 10 takeaways from the event. So, if you did miss the event, you didn't miss much, honestly, but if you did miss the event, you would have all the knowledge you would need to know from this card. Now, if you happen to be wondering why you missed my live stream or why I didn't stream today like I do every single other fight night card or pay-per-view card, it's because the UFC gave me a copyright strike. So last week for UFC 313, I was about, I guess, 9 minutes into my stream, and the UFC just took down my stuff, gave me a copyright strike, and went about their day. Now, I have zero idea why I got a copyright strike, because literally I was sitting there eating chicken nuggets, dead ass eating chicken nuggets. I then look up at my stream and see that I received a copyright strike for it. I have zero idea why that happened. I emailed the UFC, I emailed YouTube. They literally rejected my counterclaim. So I literally have no idea why I received a copyright strike. Literally, my whole fight companion is just me and my face and sometimes a fight clock, or majority of the time, a fight clock when a fight is happening. So I don't show any UFC footage. I don't show any UFC audio from the event. It's just literally me and my face. The whole purpose of a fight companion is for you guys to use your own footage that you purchased. I can't enforce if you stream it illegally or not, but the whole purpose is for you guys to use your own methods of watching it, to watch it alongside with me for my reactions, just to feel like maybe you're in some sort of community. That's how I feel. I have no friends that actually watch the UFC, so I use fight companions as a way to have some sort of community to where we can talk about an event as it happens. That's literally the whole point. I have no idea why I got a copyright strike for that. I think it's BS, but you know what? It is what it is. I'm done rambling. Let's get into these top 10 takeaways. It's still BS, but I couldn't live stream because I guess if you get a copyright strike while you're live streaming, then you can't live stream for however long period of time. I don't know. I went to Twitch for like 30 minutes, then came back to YouTube, worked fine. Then the next day, I tried to go live, and no, I can't, so I have a copyright strike. It's weird. I have no idea how it works, but apparently I couldn't stream for this event for a whole week. I don't know what happened. But we'll move on and just dive right into our first takeaway of the day, which is always the overall card recap. Now, this card was, I would say, pretty good. It wasn't a bad card. If you missed it, there was some fights on this that I do suggest you go back and rewatch. But overall, this card was all right. The main thing that stunk it up was the first 4 fights having 3 women's fights in them. Don't like seeing that. However, they did kind of deliver. I won't lie. Like, we had Carly Judas get a KO in the first round. We had Josiane Nunes get a KO in the first round. The Stephanie Luciano versus Sam Hughes fight was kind of a stinker. I won't even lie to you. But overall, the women's fights, they weren't too bad. Like, they weren't like the worst thing in the world. I typically don't pay any attention to the women's fights. I'm sorry. I just don't find them to be entertaining. Sometimes there's a banger every now and then, but the majority of the time, women's fights just don't seem to ever deliver. I hate to say it, but it's just how it is. Sometimes they can even ruin cards, but sometimes the men can as well. Like, the men can put on stinkers. It just seems like the women's fights do it more often. I won't lie to you, man. I'm just being real. I'm not trying to be some sort of asshole about this, but that just is the truth of the matter. And sometimes it just becomes very disinteresting when you see a women's fight on a card. But I will always continue to watch. I will always continue to support the UFC. I think they do a good thing by having women's fights in this. Just sometimes I'm just not excited to watch, Luciano versus Sam Hughes. I just can't get amped for it. I'm sorry. But if I had to give this card a grade, I would give it a nice solid 8.6 out of 10. Not the card of the year so far. There, again, was some stinkers on here, but I don't think it was a bad card. If you missed it, then I think you missed out on some good fights. And if you did watch it, there definitely was some times where you went to take a bathroom break. I won't even lie to you. So a nice 8.6 out of 10 for UFC Fight Night Vegas, whatever, Dolidze versus Vettori. But moving on to our second takeaway, and that is Andre Lima low key an underrated prospect. I'm not gonna lie here. I know he's 11-0. I know he has some good wins already in the UFC, but this guy's a dog. And I wasn't really too high on Andre Lima when he first had his first few fights in the UFC on a 4-fight win streak right now. But this fight versus Daniel Perez, I think, was an actual banger and an absolute masterclass from Andre Lima. I am a huge sucker for body shots. I love hooks to the body. Those are my favorite. That is my favorite strike in the UFC, or my favorite move. I mean, even over a nice good double leg or a nice good single leg. I love when fighters dig hooks into the body. And Andre Lima in this fight was digging so many hooks into the body of Daniel Perez. I have no idea how Perez even survived to the third round. It made no sense to me. This guy was eating calf kick after calf kick. He was eating, I mean, right hooks to the body, left hooks to the body. This dude was, I mean, eating everything, and he survived to the third round. Andre Lima decides, you know what? The striking, I can't really put him away with that anymore. Let's go ahead and get a takedown. He does in the second round, carries on to win that round. In the third round, does the same thing, eventually finding the rear naked choke in that third round. Just a great fight from Andre Lima, and a really technical fight. And again, like, I love hooks to the body, and this guy, he threw at least like 30 hooks to the body and landed, I would say, like 20 to 25 of them. I think his success rate when it came to hooks to the body was at least over 90%. This dude was always landing hooks to the body, and that to me is just very JDM-esque. And listen, if you know me, you know my favorite fighter is JDM. He's going to beat Bilal. He will beat Bilal. I will pray to the MMA gods that he destroys Bilal Muhammad, because I love JDM that much. But Andre Lima put on a nice JDM masterclass against Daniel Perez. Very, very impressive. And yeah, Andre Lima, when I do release the prospect report, I'm actually going to skip that for this video. So if you came for the prospect report, it won't be in this video today. I'm going to save that for probably like a whole video for itself, because at this point, I want people to really understand how the prospect report works. And I think just slapping it into a recap video every single week doesn't give it enough justice. I go through a whole Excel sheet. I go through a whole spreadsheet and organize all these prospects. I think at this point, when I have so many fighters on there now, it deserves its whole video. So Andre Lima, when I do drop that prospect report, it will be, he will be pretty high on that list. Definitely cracking the top 25 rankings in the UFC. So Andre Lima, great fight. He's definitely a guy or a fighter who you will want to pay attention to in the future. Moving on, Carlos Vera versus Josias Musasa, or Josias Musasa. Carlos Vera surprised me, man. Like, I didn't pick him, but Musasa, like, this guy being from the Congo, like, his whole story is that he's from the Congo and he's like the only fighter from the Congo. It's kind of like the whole Dricus and Cameron Simon when they first came into the UFC. Like, these guys are from South Africa. There's not really any representation for them in the UFC. So the UFC kind of pushed this narrative, or promoted him as this guy from the Congo who's coming up. And yeah, he gets finished in the first round, gets head kicked off timing, off beat. It was actually a pretty nice head kick from Carlos Vera, and he drops him bad with it. He immediately takes the back and then chokes him out. Great win from Carlos Vera. This guy, how old is Carlos Vera? I think he's pretty up there in age, man. He is not the young, or on the very yeah, he's 37 years old. Like, he's not very young at all. So for him to get a win at this point in his career, I think is very impressive. And obviously, Musasa is, how old is he? He's pretty young as well, right? Yeah, Musasa is 26. So yeah, sucks for him. Kind of a prospect coming in, kind of a guy you wanted to maybe get behind. He did have a pretty close decision on the Contender Series versus Tanzalavi, but he got the nod, got signed to the UFC, and then he loses in the first round by rear naked choke, basically KO kind of. I guess you could combine them both into one. But before that, he was carrying everybody out cold, or he was getting finishes. I mean, flying knee round 1, ground and pound round 1, left hook round 1, KO round 2, KO round 1. And these guys weren't even like that bad of competition for him. I mean, it was a 1-0 guy, 6-1 guy, 5-1 guy, 9-0 guy. Like, he wasn't fighting like absolute scrubs. Sometimes you see guys come into the UFC and they have wins over a guy who's like 5-24, like it's an easy win for him. But this guy came in with, I think, actual good credentials for the most part. He loses though. It is what it is. Good for Carlos Vera. An old man gets the nod, gets the win. So not too good of a look when you have an old guy like Carlos Vera getting wins in the UFC. You kind of want to use him as a way to get more prospects, upped and more promoted in the UFC. So sucks for Musasa, but I think he will find a way to move on and get a win in the future. But getting on to our next takeaway, and this one kind of pains me to talk about a little bit, but lighter man skill might not work. So I've been pounding the table. I have been slamming my fist on the table for months and months and months now. I have pretty much advised, even though I don't think any UFC fighter is taking my advice, but I have given my unwarranted advice to a lot of light heavyweights that they should move up to heavyweight because there just isn't really anybody at heavyweight who is that good outside the top five. Like, there is really not any fighter. So Ryan Spann, he takes my advice. Thank you, Ryan Spann. And he moves up to heavyweight to fight Waldo Cortez Acosta. And Letterman skill might not exist, man, because Ryan Spann, that entire fight, he looked like a complete joke. Now, Cortez Acosta, I think, is on his way to being one of those top five heavyweights. I think as time goes on, once we get John Jones and Curtis Blades, some of these older guys to move on from their UFC careers, I think we'll see Cortez Acosta be that kind of a top five staple in the UFC or in the UFC heavyweight division for a very long time. But I thought at least Ryan Spann would kind of show that he has some sort of light heavyweight skill in this matchup. And he just looked like complete trash. I know Ryan Spann, when he fought light heavyweight, he mainly relied on his athleticism to carry him through fights. But I thought I thought fighting, Bogdan Guskov, and he lost to him, by the way. But I thought fighting some of these guys like Dominic Reyes and fighting Jan Kutalaba and fighting Misha Serkinov and Anthony Smith twice and Vince St. Preux and just fighting some of these guys who are at least very decent or good at light heavyweight would kind of come true. But it turns out he just is, maybe he's a natural heavyweight. I don't know, because this was disappointing. He just kind of went in there and just threw a bunch of hooks. And to be fair, so was Cortez Acosta. But he just was so much faster than Ryan Spann that it just didn't matter. And he packed way more of a punch than what Ryan Spann did. And Ryan Spann, the entire time, was just kind of looking for a way out. There was some fouls by Cortez Acosta in this matchup. He did groin strike him a couple times. They did stop the fight for an eye poke, which it obviously wasn't an eye poke. But it just seems like when he got hit in the groin, he just kind of wanted a way out. He was kind of already slowing down the second round. It just seemed like he didn't really want to be there. And I don't know, Ryan Spann disappointed me. Kind of hurts the narrative of lighter man skill overall. If Ryan Spann can't beat Cortez Acosta right now, I don't really see him going on a nice, huge heavyweight run. I think he got stopped in his tracks today. He might move back down. That puts him at 22-11 as a record. Not the craziest of records, but yeah, I think he's kind of cooked right now. But Acosta, I think he has somewhat of a good future. I think that fight for me kind of put me on to Cortez Acosta. I think he will go on to probably be in the top five of heavyweight. I do think that he does beat some guys in the division. Like, I think he does beat Derek Lewis. I mean, the only really true weakness of Cortez Acosta right now is probably the low kicks, and Derek Lewis don't do that. I mean, we don't see Derek Lewis, biting down and land a nasty calf kick on somebody. So I think he's fine in that department. The only way I really see him losing in the future is he gets chinned by somebody like a Tom Aspinall, or he gets just ragdolled by Gelton Almeida. So I don't know. And maybe then, he probably could chin Almeida. I mean, if Curtis Blades could do it, I wouldn't doubt if Cortez Acosta could do it as well. So he looked good, but Letterman skill didn't come true in this fight for this event. So yeah, but getting into our next takeaway, and hopefully you're listening, because when I mentioned how sometimes some prospects come to the UFC and they've only fought guys with shitty records, that kind of was the case when it comes to DR Nurgaje. Now, here's a deal with Nurgaje here. This guy fought some cans coming into the UFC, or before he got in the Contender Series. He fought a 23-12 guy, not that bad of a record. Fought a 19-14 guy at Eagle FC. Fought an 18-21 guy. I mean, there's just some guys on his record here that are just kind of cans. Now, he fights Brinson Ribeiro, and the entire time, this guy looks like he's just not good. Like he just doesn't look good at all whatsoever. And Brinson Ribeiro, I mean, his record is 16-7. Or before this fight, or coming into this fight, he was 15-7. Like this guy was on his way to getting cut if he lost. And I mean, he just looked not good. Like the way he moved his body around and the way he was trying to, well, I know he has this tick, by the way, where he constantly wipes his eyes. Like it is a very, very noticeable tick because he does it so much. I thought at first he got eye poked, but then Michael Bisping on the commentary team went ahead to clarify that it's just a tick, that he always does that. So what I mean by body language, I'm not referring to his tick. I'm actually referring to the way like he would kind of like dodge kicks, or like the way he would block kicks. He would kind of block it and then just throw his arms out. It just seemed like it was very weird. And the way he fought, man, it just seemed like he couldn't find his way on the inside whatsoever. He just couldn't really do anything to Brinson Ribeiro. And he gets dropped in the first round pretty badly. He comes in with his hands down and he's trying to counter strike, but he's not really having good distance management. He gets caught by a 1-2. Like he got hit. No, sorry. He avoided a strike, came back in for the counter, didn't commit to the counter, and then got countered by Brinson Ribeiro and dropped. Wasn't good. He survived the first round anyways. Didn't get dropped too amazingly badly. Then the second round goes for a takedown. I think it gets reversed, honestly. But Brinson Ribeiro locks up Kimura. Pretty much like this Kimura was not the most technical Kimura that I've ever seen. It really felt like Ribeiro was just trying to, I would say, brute force this Kimura, which he did, by the way. And he ends up submitting Dergaje, whatever you say his name, Nurgaje, ends up submitting him. So good win for Brinson Ribeiro. His UFC career stays on for a little bit, maybe a couple more fights. I think he still loses to a lot of guys. I don't think he's that amazing, but this Nurgaje guy is he's in for a rude awakening, man. In for a rude awakening. I don't think he'll last too long in the UFC if he's losing to Brinson Ribeiro. But you know what? I've been wrong before, and sometimes fighters lose their debut. I mean, Marab went 0-2, so look at him now. Look at me now. Sorry, but yeah, Nurgaje, not that Eastern Hemisphere prospect that people wanted him to be, I guess, so far. Sungwoo Choi is cut. He's gone. This guy is not going to be in the UFC anymore. And I mean, shout out to Kevin Vallejos. He kind of advocated for Sungwoo Choi to get another chance in the UFC, but I don't see the UFC keeping him on. This guy has been in the UFC for quite a while now. He's only on a 2-fight losing streak, but I mean, he's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's 1-5 in his last 6. It's not looking good for Sungwoo Choi. 4-7 in the UFC overall. I mean, Vallejos is good, man. Like he's a true prospect, and like his only loss so far in his UFC career is to Gene Silva, which he took to a decision, by the way. Didn't get finished by him on the Contender Series. Then after that, went back to his regional club, defended his belt again, and then got in the UFC. Got another, Contender Series fight. Won that by KO. Now, this guy I think is a real prospect. He reminds me a little bit of Ilia Topuria. I'm not going to lie to you. Like, the way he fights is very Ilia Topuria-esque. I can see him going pretty far. He is pretty undersized for featherweight. He is small, which kind of, again, reminds me of Topuria. He's only 23 years old, so this guy is going to have a nice career in the UFC. So if you're looking for a prospect, I think he does crack the prospect report as well. He will be on there. But this guy, Kevin Vallejos, I definitely will be keeping my eye on as his fight career continues. But you know what? I have delayed it long enough. Let's talk this main event. Let's talk about Marvin Vettori versus Roman Dolidze. This fight to me was, I think, a very fun fight, but I think it also was a very shitty fight at the same time. I don't think these guys are anywhere close to being the best middleweights in the world. I'm not going to lie to you. It was a very, in my opinion, untechnical fight. It didn't seem like it was very highly skilled whatsoever, But I think the fact that these guys both were kind of scrapping back and forth a little bit made this fight fun. Sometimes fights that are not very technical can still be fun. And this fight to me, I think fits that bill. Now, Delizzi wins basically because Vettori just didn't have enough, man. Like, I felt like Delizzi just wanted it more. That's what this fight came down to me. I think he just wanted it more, and he would land something, and he would do more. He would pressure more. Like, Delizzi was kind of in his bag today. Like, I think he just really wanted to win. And I don't rate Vettori striking, but I don't rate Delizzi striking either. But I think after Vettori dislocated his elbow or his shoulder, after he's been out for 2 years, man, I think he had some ring rust or some octagon rust coming into this. Delizzi on the scorecards, he won every single round besides round 3, which was the round where I do think Vettori hurt him for a second. So, I mean, he did outstrike him as well, and he did hurt him as well. So, I guess you give round 3 to Vettori. But yeah, it just seems like the entire time Delizzi was pushing the envelope here, and he just wanted to fucking win. That's like the whole narrative of the whole fight. Like, he would land knees in the clinch to the face. Like, he would throw spinning elbows or inverted elbows against Vettori. Like, it was like Delizzi's flu game. I'm not flu game, but it was like he was really in his bag today. I ain't gonna lie. I'm not a huge fan of Delizzi, but I had to look at this fight and say, man, he was in his bag today. I won't even lie to you. So Delizzi wins. Again, both these guys just aren't really that impressive to me. It seemed like even after these 2 years off for Vettori, he hasn't found a way to improve or just become less simple. Like, I think Vettori will always be just this simple fighter who can beat guys. Now, on the feet, Vettori, I think, is just as basic as it absolutely gets. Like, he is the baseline fighter on the feet. If you can do more than just a 1-2 on the feet and an occasional calf kick or low kick, congratulations, you are more advanced than Marvin Vettori. He is that simple on the feet. And like, Vettori just has to grapple, man. Like, he just has to grapple more. Like, he needs to grapple to win fights. I don't understand. And like, I know it's Delizzi, and Lidzi on the ground is kind of a monster, honestly. Like, the way he beat Jack Hermanson, Jack Hermanson took him down, which was probably his biggest mistake, was taking down Delizzi, and that's why he got TKO'd. So it's like, I understand, like, when you're fighting Delizzi, you just don't want to outright take him down because he does have that threat on the ground. But I think Vettori just, if he wants to win fights in the future, man, it's going to have to be by grappling. And he just can't win fights by just purely striking. I mean, let's go back and go through Marvin Vettori's career in his last, let's go like his last 5 fights, right? And right now he's what? He's 2-3 in his last 5, right? He fought Delizzi, mainly striked, and he lost. He fought Cannonier. Manly was on the feet. He struck with Cannonier. He lost. When he fought Delizzi the first time, 3-rounder, he won, mainly striked. Okay, he's 1 for 2 right now. Whitaker, it's Whitaker, by the way, but Whitaker embarrassed him. But when he fought Whitaker, mainly striked, he lost. Paulo Costa, he tried to grapple Paulo Costa at times, man. Like it was mainly on the feet for the most part, but Vettori's chin just carried him through. But he at least tried some takedowns. Like, he tried 5 takedowns against Costa. He only got 1 of them. But at times, he did have control time over Costa, which I think was impressive. Like, that's how he beat Costa, was by trying at least to mix in the grappling every round, besides, I guess, the 3rd round. Yeah, and the 1st, by the way. But yeah, like, Vettori has to incorporate some level of grappling to win fights. I don't see him beating any fighter right now in the top 10 with his style of striking. It just is way too simple. And for Delizzi, like, he fought Vettori, he fought Kevin Holland, he fought Anthony Smith. Like, I think the level of opponents or the level of skill that Delizzi is fighting just isn't, that great. Like, because when he fights a guy like Imavov, he loses. When he fights a guy like, even Trevin Giles, he lost to, but that was forever ago. But I think if he fights some of these top or these higher ranked guys at middleweight, I think he gets either chinned or completely outclassed. I'm just not very high on Delizzi, and I don't think I ever will be. But, Delizzi wins. Good for him. He had a nice fur coat in the post-fight press conference or the post-fight interview. So good for him. Jordans are up right now. They got Taporia, they got Marab, they got Delidze. So good shit, Georgians, I guess, man. But I don't know, man. That's my top takeaways from this event. I have some more, but it would just overall be me doing a recap. I'm gonna save some of these prospects like a Hernandez, Hullable, not really prospects, I guess, but Damon Blackshear's on a run now. But I'll save like a yeah, no, it's all the prospects really from the card. I ain't gonna lie to you. But yeah, that's really about it. If you enjoyed this video, like, subscribe, bell icon for notifications, but I'll see y'all later. Peace.